My mom slapped me in front of 200 people at my sister's wedding and yelled, "You had no right to ruin her wedding," because a random guest interrupted the ceremony. Then Grandpa plugged in a USB. The secrets it exposed changed our family forever that afternoon. Hey Reddit, my family always saw me as the screw-up while my sister was the perfect one. I stayed out of their way, built my own life, figured I was done with the drama. Turns out they had other plans. Before I get to the mess, let me start at the beginning. I guess I should start by saying my name's Ryan. I'm 27, work in IT for a local construction company, nothing glamorous. My sister Megan was always the golden child in the family. Straight A's, cheer captain, college sweetheart fiance named Brandon. She did everything by the book. I was the opposite, barely scraped through school, got caught up with the wrong crowd for a bit, and I've had more than a few blow-ups with my mom over the years. Dad stayed quiet through all of it like he always does. So yeah, in our family, Megan was the perfect one. I was the kid they whispered about at Thanksgiving. The wedding was supposed to be her big day. Ceremony first, then this fancy reception at a hotel downtown. Mom had been bragging for months about how perfect everything was going to be. Every flower matched the napkins, the cake was 4 tiers, the whole 9 yards. It was already a sauna inside because the AC was busted, and everyone was fanning themselves with the programs. Megan looked like she walked out of a bridal magazine, standing up there with Brandon under the giant cross, the pastor going on about love and commitment. People were tearing up. Then, right when the pastor said, "If anyone knows a reason these two should not be joined," a guy in the back row stood up. He wasn't dressed like a guest. Jeans, plain button-down, nervous energy. He says loud enough for everyone to hear, "Are you sure about this, Megan?" The whole room froze. Like, you could hear the AC rattling in the ceiling even though it barely worked. Megan spun around, her veil swishing, eyes wide. Brandon looked like he'd swallowed a rock. And then, like clockwork, every head in that place turned toward me. Because of course they did. I was leaning against the side wall, dressed in the suit Mom made me rent, just trying to get through this thing without drama. But one look from her and I knew she thought this had my name all over it. "Ryan!" she hissed, like I just set the chapel on fire. I shook my head immediately. Wasn't me. The guy in the back sat down after a second, like maybe he regretted saying anything, but the damage was done. The pastor stopped talking. Megan's face was red. Mom was glaring at me like she wanted to drag me outside by the ear, even though I hadn't done a damn thing. Brandon tried to laugh it off, but his laugh came out weird and high-pitched. Let's keep going," he said, looking at the pastor. But Megan wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at me, and it wasn't the usual annoyed sister look either. It was this tight, sharp glare that said, "If you ruin this, we're done." So here's the part nobody at the wedding knew. The night before all this, I ran into Brandon behind the venue kitchen while the staff was unloading cases of bottled water and flowers. It was late. Most of the family had gone home to rest before the big day. I was grabbing my jacket when I saw him out there, smoking and pacing. Now, I don't like Brandon. Never have. It's not just protective brother stuff either. There's something fake about the guy. Like, he shakes your hand, but looks over your shoulder while doing it. Always felt like he was performing for Megan and my parents. Anyway, a week earlier, one of my coworkers, Matt, told me his girlfriend used to hang out with Brandon's college buddies. Apparently, Brandon wasn't exactly living the saintly life Megan thought he was living. Nothing concrete, just, "You should probably ask your sister if she really knows this guy," type of talk. So yeah, I went right up to him that night and told him straight, "Look, man, if you've got something Megan doesn't know, you better tell her before tomorrow. Better she hears it from you than someone else." He laughed like I was joking, then got serious real fast. Said I didn't know what I was talking about, that people love to run their mouths, that Megan didn't need my drama the night before her wedding. I told him I didn't care about drama, but if there was something she needed to know, she deserved to know before she married him in front of 200 people. He flicked the cigarette into the trash bin so hard the ash flew out and told me to mind my own business. Walked off like he was done talking. So yeah, that was the last conversation we had before today blew up. Which explains why, when the random guy interrupted the ceremony and everyone looked at me, they were thinking, "Oh, that must be about what Ryan said last night." But I didn't help myself either because my family already thinks I'm the troublemaker. Megan got scholarships. I barely graduated. She got engaged at 24. I moved back home at 24 after losing my first apartment because my roommate bailed on rent. Every mistake I made stuck to me like glue, while every good thing Megan did got her another framed picture on Mom's hallway wall. As the pastor tried to regain control, I felt someone slip a folded place card into my hand. I turned slightly. It was my cousin Layla, standing near the aisle pretending to fix her shoe. We barely talk at family stuff except for polite small talk. I unfolded the card under the pew. All it said was 1402, 10 minutes. I stared at it, trying not to show anything on my face. Room 1402 was part of the hotel attached to the reception hall. Before I could process it, Megan's voice snapped through the air. Ryan, if you've got something to say it now. My mouth opened, but nothing came out because I didn't even know what this was about yet. Mom cut in before I could answer. He's not saying anything because he just wants attention, she said, real sharp, like she'd been waiting years to unload that line in public. Brandon mumbled something to Megan, but she shoved his hand off her arm. The pastor suggested we all take a short break before the vows. Probably the smartest move he made all day. People started whispering, fanning themselves harder, looking between me, Megan, and the guy in the back, like they were watching the first act of some cheap drama. I walked out into the hallway before Mom could corner me. She was calling my name, but I kept moving. I needed air, space, something. That's when I saw Brandon near the lobby doors, phone to his ear, pacing fast, talking even faster. He looked worried. Not like a groom running late worried. More like a guy whose plans just fell apart worried. I didn't have proof yet, but right then I knew two things. One, something about this wedding was messed up. Two, for once in my life, it wasn't because of me. I checked the time. 10 minutes until I found out what was in room 1402. And yeah, I was going. I headed for the hallway where Layla told me to meet her. She's my mom's sister's kid, 2 years younger than me, college student, quiet type. We've never talked about anything deeper than how's school. She was waiting near the side exit by the vending machines, arms folded like she was guarding the door. You came, she said when I walked up. Yeah, what's going on? She glanced over her shoulder before pulling a hotel keycard from her purse and pressing it into my hand. Room 1402, desk drawer. You'll find something there. Just don't go alone. That threw me off. Why not? Because if he sees you with it, he's gonna come after you, she said. It's a backup he doesn't know exists. He thinks the only copy is the one being held for your grandpa. Who's he? I asked, even though I already knew. She didn't answer, just looked toward the lobby where Brandon was still pacing on his phone. 10 minutes, she said. Then go. And the guy who stood up in the chapel? I asked. I texted a friend to stall if things got tense, she said. 2 minutes, one question, then sit down. I just needed time to get that key to you. Before I could ask her anything else, my mom appeared at the end of the hall, heels clicking like a countdown clock. Ryan, she snapped, marching over. What are you doing back here? Getting some air, I said, slipping the key card into my pocket before she saw it. She narrowed her eyes. You need to stay out of this. Whatever this is, your sister's wedding is not the place for you to make some point. Wasn't planning to, I said. Good, she said, straightening her dress like the conversation was over. Because Megan's upset enough. You show up, stand there like some angry bodyguard, and people start asking questions. I wanted to tell her I didn't start any of this, but there wasn't time. She turned to go back inside, then paused. Ryan, she added, softer this time, don't make a scene, please. That's when I knew for sure she was hiding something. My mom only says, don't make a scene when there's something she doesn't want people looking at too closely. As soon as she was gone, I headed for the lobby. Brandon was still on his phone near the front doors. He didn't see me. He was talking fast, words like problem, handle it, and tonight, carrying across the empty hallway. I slowed down so he wouldn't notice me, then cut through the side corridor toward the elevators. I checked my watch. 9 minutes. Room 1402 was waiting, and whatever was in that drawer, I had a feeling it was about to answer a lot of questions. The elevator ride up felt longer than it really was. 14 floors, that's all. But the whole time I was thinking about Layla's face when she handed me that key card. She wasn't joking around. Whatever was in this room, she thought it mattered enough to risk Mom and Megan tearing her apart later. 14th floor hallway was quiet. Carpet smelling like lemon cleaner. The air way colder than downstairs. Room 1402 was halfway down on the left. Silver numbers on a fake wood door. I slid the key card. Green light blinked. Door clicked open. The room was empty, neat like the hotel staff had just finished with it. Bed made tight, curtains half open so sunlight cut across the floor in a sharp line. A sea humming steady. No bags, no personal stuff, no trash. Just a generic hotel room waiting for the next guest. I didn't waste time. Went straight to the desk by the window, pulled open the top drawer. Inside was a small manila envelope with a single printed page on top. I picked up the page first. It was grainy black and white footage, timestamp in the corner, Camera angle looking down a hallway. Two people near a door. The man was definitely Brandon. You could tell from the haircut, the suit jacket, even the way he leaned on the wall like he owned the place. The woman wore a red dress, hair falling over one shoulder. She was standing close, too close for anyone to mistake it as innocent. I flipped the page over. Blank. No captions, no note. Just the image. I opened the envelope. Inside was a tiny USB drive with a red cap and another printed page folded in half. This one wasn't a photo. It was a bank transaction record. Same date as Megan's engagement party. Brandon's name in the corner. Amount big enough to raise questions. $5,000 cash withdrawal, but not so big that it screamed criminal. I didn't know what it meant yet, but the pieces weren't looking good for him. I put the paper back in the envelope and was about to leave when footsteps came down the hallway outside. Slow, steady, getting closer. I froze. The steps stopped right at my door. The handle turned once. I jumped back fast and threw the deadbolt. Whoever it was tried the handle again, harder this time. Then nothing. I waited, barely breathing, heart going loud in my ears. A few seconds later, the steps moved on down the hall toward the far corner. I exhaled, grabbed my phone, snapped a picture of the bank page just in case, then typed out a quick text to Megan. I need to show you something. 30 seconds later, she answered. Stop. That was all. No explanation, no question. Just one word. I stared at the screen for half a second, then shoved the phone in my pocket, grabbed the envelope, unlocked the door, and stepped into the hallway. Nobody around. Carpet muffled my footsteps as I moved fast toward the elevators. The doors opened just as I got there, and of course, standing inside like the universe wanted this to happen, was Brandon. One of his groomsmen was with him, big guy in a gray suit. Brandon saw the envelope in my hand immediately. His eyes snagged on it, confused, like he was realizing for the first time there was another set. Give it to me, he said, stepping forward. I held my ground in the doorway. No. And his friend shifted, blocking half the opening like he was ready to help. I slipped sideways into the hallway before they could trap me in there. Brandon lowered his voice. You show that to anyone, I'll make this ugly. I stared right back at him. It's already ugly. His jaw flexed tight, but he didn't follow. He stayed in the elevator as the doors closed between us. I headed through the sky bridge back toward the reception hall, envelope under my arm, pulse still hammering. My phone buzzed again, but I ignored it. When I walked back into the main hall, people were already taking their seats like the ceremony was about to restart. Megan was near the front with Mom, both of them looking tense, talking close, voices sharp. I scanned the room and saw my grandfather near the AV table, where the wedding planner was fiddling with cables for the slideshow projector. Grandpa stood there calm as ever, hands behind his back, nodding as the planner explained something about the laptop setup. He looked over at me once, not surprised, just a small nod. He'd already seen the USB, front desk had called him that morning, and he was waiting for the right moment to use it. The ceremony never restarted. Instead, everyone got shuffled into the reception hall under the excuse of technical delays. No one bought it. People were whispering before they even found their seats. My uncle was by the buffet asking if he should still grab a plate or wait. The DJ was stalling with background music. I stayed near the side wall with the envelope under my arm, watching everything. Megan was at the center of it all, talking to Mom and Brandon. Her veil was crooked now from how many times she'd pushed it back. Her lipstick smudged. She looked furious and nervous at the same time. Then Mom spotted me. She marched straight across the hall, heels snapping on the floor, her face tight with anger. She didn't say a word at first, just slapped me, hard. It was loud enough that people at the nearest tables turned. You stirred this up, didn't you? She snapped, voice sharp enough to cut through the music. I stepped back, my cheek stinging. I didn't say anything. Megan came up behind her. Why do you hate me so much? She asked, voice shaking. You couldn't just let me be happy for one day? That stung worse than the slap. I didn't do this, I said, looking at both of them. I just walked in here like the rest of you. But Megan wasn't listening. She folded her arms tight, glaring like I was the reason the wedding was falling apart. Then my grandfather's voice cut through the noise. Calm, steady. Enough, he said. He was standing by the AV table where the projector screen was rolled down. In his hand was a USB stick. Not the one I found, a different one. Front desk called me this morning. Anonymous drop for me, no name, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. I didn't plan on showing it, but I think now's the right time. Mom turned toward him. Dad, don't. But he was already plugging it into the wedding planner's laptop. He moved slow but deliberate, like nothing anyone said was going to stop him. The screen flickered, And then the footage started. Grainy black and white video, timestamp in the corner. Hotel hallway. Brandon came into frame first. He was wearing the same jacket he had on during the engagement party night. That alone made people start whispering. Then the woman in the red dress stepped out of the room, her back to the camera, laughing at something Brandon said. She leaned against the wall. He leaned next to her. They were close. Too close for any excuses. The timestamp showed it was the night of Megan's engagement party. People gasped when Brandon touched her arm. He didn't push her away. Didn't look uncomfortable. Then he kissed her. Quick. Not some long thing, but long enough. Megan's hand went to her mouth. Brandon shot forward from the front row like the laptop was on fire. "Turn it off," he said, yanking at the HDMI cable. I got there first and blocked him with my shoulder. "Move," he snapped, trying to shove me aside. "No," I said. He shoved harder. We slammed into the edge of a table, knocking over a stack of unused champagne flutes. They crashed to the floor, glass everywhere. A couple of Brandon's friends rushed up, pulling him back before things got worse. My uncle stepped in between us, holding a hand out like we were two kids fighting at Christmas dinner. "Get him out of here," Mom said suddenly. Her voice cracked a little, but her face was stone cold. Brandon froze. "Maggie," he started, but Mom cut him off. "Leave. Now. Before this gets uglier than it already is." He looked at Megan. She wouldn't even meet his eyes. Her hands were shaking at her sides, her face pale under the makeup. One of his friends muttered something about getting his jacket from the back, but Brandon just stood there like he couldn't believe this was happening in front of 150 people. Then he turned and walked out. The door slammed behind him. People started whispering louder now, like they were trying to piece together what they just saw. Megan didn't cry. She didn't move at all. Mom stood next to her, face tight, lips pressed together. Dad was in the corner like always, not saying a word, just rubbing the back of his neck like maybe if he stayed quiet enough, he'd disappear. Grandpa shut the laptop and handed the USB back to the wedding planner. Then he walked over to me. "Here," he said quietly, slipping a small envelope into my hand. It wasn't the one with the bank pages or the one he just used. "This one's for you," he said, not the same as what I showed. I looked at him. "What's on it?" He just shook his head. "Read it later, when things calm down." He looked tired but steady, like he'd been carrying this whole mess all day and was finally setting it down piece by piece. The hall was dead silent, except for people whispering at the back tables. Megan still hadn't said a word. I looked at the envelope in my hand, wondering how much worse this could get. Turns out, a lot. I waited until the hall thinned out before opening the envelope Grandpa gave me. People were still talking in low voices, some slipping out toward the parking lot, others staying like they didn't want to miss whatever might happen next. Megan was gone somewhere. Mom was pacing near the gift table, jaw tight, face like stone. Dad sat on a chair with his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like he wished it would swallow him. I tore the envelope open in a corner near the hallway doors. More grainy prints, same camera angle as before, same hotel hallway. But this time it wasn't Brandon. It was Mom. She was standing outside a hotel room door in her blue jacket, holding a manila envelope. Different timestamp. This was the morning after the engagement party. The next picture showed her handing the envelope to a hotel staffer in uniform. Scrawled across the top in marker, "Delivered a front desk for Thomas Carter," my grandfather's name. So she'd parked it with hotel staff the morning after the engagement party and made sure it would be handed to Grandpa on the wedding day. I stared at it for a long moment, feeling my stomach drop. She hadn't just known. She'd set the whole thing up so Grandpa would be the one to reveal it. So it would look neat. Official. Truth coming from the most trusted man in the family instead of the screw-up son. There was more in the envelope. A folded page, printed photo of an email draft on someone's laptop screen. I recognized the desktop background, Mom's. The subject line said Investors Update. Part of the draft read, "We need to keep the investors calm until the wedding goes through. If this leaks early, the entire plan falls apart." Investors? We didn't have investors. I folded the papers back up, my hands tight around the edges, and walked straight over to Mom and Dad. Mom stopped pacing when she saw the envelope. "What's that?" she asked, voice sharp. I held up the prints. "It's you," I said, delivering the files to the hotel. "You staged this, handed it to the hotel so Grandpa would be the one to reveal it." Dad straightened in his chair, frowning. "Margaret, what is he talking about?" Mom's expression didn't change. "I did what was necessary," she said flatly. "Necessary?" I held the print closer to her. "You let Megan hate me. You slapped me in front of everyone. All so you could control how this came out?" Dad looked between us, confused and tired. "Margaret?" he said again, voice quieter this time. Mom smoothed the front of her dress like she always did when she was cornered. Megan would never have believed me if I told her myself, she said. This way, she fought to prove it wrong, and in the process, she saw the truth with her own eyes. It was the only way. I stared at her. The only way to what? Humiliate her in front of 200 people? To keep her from marrying a liar, Mom snapped. To stop her from wasting her life on someone who would have ruined her. Dad rubbed his forehead like the words were giving him a headache. For God's sake, Margaret, he muttered. I pulled out the photo of the email draft. What's this about investors? Since when do we have investors? Mom's eyes flicked to the page, then back to me. That email is from last week, she said. Back then, the plan was to keep the investors calm until the wedding went through. If it leaked early, the deal would implode. So what changed? The ledger, she said. I saw the payments 2 nights ago. That's when I scrapped the plan and decided to stop the wedding, before Megan signed her life to him. I repacked the footage and had it held for your grandfather at the front desk this morning, so the truth would come from someone Megan trusted. I stared at her. So you gambled with Megan's wedding? With her life? I made sure she didn't marry someone who would betray her, Mom shot back. She would have ignored me if I'd told her privately. This way, she couldn't. Dad leaned back in his chair like the weight of it all finally hit him. His face looked older in that moment, lines deeper, shoulders slumped. You let her hate me, I said quietly. You knew she'd blame me first. Mom didn't even blink. She needed someone to push against, she said. Someone she wouldn't believe. That's how she was going to find the truth. I shook my head. Unbelievable. Just then, the side door opened. Megan walked in wearing jeans and a sweater now, hair pulled back, makeup gone. She must have changed upstairs. She looked at the photos in my hand, then at Mom's face. What's going on? She asked. Nobody answered. I handed her the prints without a word. She flipped through them slowly, her expression changing with each one. The hallway shots, the envelope handoff, the email draft. When she looked up, her voice was low but steady. You let me hate him? She asked Mom. Just so I'd see the truth? Mom didn't flinch. Yes. No apology. No regret. Just that one word. Megan stared at her for a long moment, then set the prints on the table without saying anything else. The room was silent except for the faint music still playing in the empty reception hall beyond the doors. Megan didn't yell, didn't cry. She just stood there in the middle of the reception hall, holding the photos like they were heavier than they really were. Then she set them on the table next to the half-eaten wedding cake and looked straight at Mom. I'm done letting you call the shots, she said, voice low but final. You got what you wanted. He's gone. Wedding's over. But you don't get to control what happens next. Mom opened her mouth, ready to fire back, but Megan cut her off before she could even start. And don't look at him, Megan added, nodding toward me. This time I watched it with my own eyes. He didn't do this. You did. Mom's face went red like she wasn't used to being told no by either of her kids. She tried anyway. If he had minded his business... No, Megan snapped. He stayed out of it until you dragged him in front of everyone. You used him. And me. So stop pretending this was for my good. For a second, I thought Mom might actually argue, but she didn't. She just turned toward the window, jaw tight, hands on her hips like she was holding herself together by force. Megan left the room without saying anything else. I followed a minute later. Not to talk to her, she clearly wanted space, but to find Layla. She was backstage near the catering tables, eating a plate of cold pasta like nothing had happened. I sat across from her on a folding chair. Why me? I asked. You could have given that key to anyone. She shrugged. My friend on hotel staff found the envelope under her door this morning. No name on it. She didn't want to get involved. I told her I knew someone who wasn't fake smiling through this whole thing. So you picked me, I said. Yeah, she said, stabbing another bite of pasta. Everyone else looked too scared to actually open it. Fair enough. I thanked her and headed toward the side exit for some air. That's when I ran into a tall guy in a black suit leaning against the loading dock railing. I recognized him from earlier, one of Brandon's friends, the quiet one who hadn't said much all day. He didn't waste time. Word of advice, he said. Forget the money trail stuff. I stopped a few feet away. Why? Because some of the people behind it aren't the kind you argue with. He looked straight at me, face serious. You don't want this on your back. I didn't answer. He pushed off the railing. Brandon messed up with the girl, yeah. But the other stuff? That's bigger than him. Bigger than you. Before I could ask what he meant, Brandon himself walked out from the other side of the dock. His tie was gone, hair messed up, like he'd been pacing in circles since leaving the hall. The friend backed off a little like he didn't want any part of what was about to happen. Brandon came straight at me. "You think you won because she threw me out?" he said. "You think you're the hero here?" I didn't answer. He swung first. It wasn't some movie punch, just a fast, sloppy swing that caught my shoulder more than my jaw. I shoved him backward into a metal hand truck leaning against the wall. It clattered loud enough to bring 2 hotel staff running. They jumped between us before either of us could land another shot. Brandon's friend grabbed him by the arm, muttering something about leaving before the cops got called. Brandon spit on the ground near my shoe, then stormed off around the corner, his friend following. The hotel staff gave me a look like they were debating whether to call security, but one of them recognized me from earlier and told me to wrap it up quick. I headed back inside, shaking out my hand even though I hadn't really hit him. Dad was waiting near the hallway door. He didn't yell, just motioned me over. "I should have trusted you sooner," he said once we were out of earshot. "About all of this. Your mother's been under pressure from Robert's people about the deal. She tried to keep it steady until the wedding. Then she saw the payments and flipped the plan." I leaned against the wall. "So this was about money?" "Partly," Dad said, "but also pride. She didn't want Megan blindsided after the marriage. Thought if it came out now, she'd walk away before signing her life to him. She just didn't think it through." That was the understatement of the year. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was Megan. "I need you at Grandpa's tomorrow morning. There's something I want to check." Attached was a photo of a ledger page. Handwritten columns, initials at the top, BR, amounts next to each date. I texted back one word, "Okay," because whatever this was, it clearly wasn't over. Next morning, I drove to Grandpa's place with a stiff shoulder from yesterday's mess at the loading dock. His house sat at the edge of town, a single-story place with peeling white paint and a porch swing that hadn't worked in years. He was out front waiting like he always did when he had something serious to talk about. Inside, the kitchen table was cleared, except for a big cardboard box stuffed with folders, old ledgers, and a few flash drives in plastic baggies. He tapped the box once. "No more secrets," he said. Megan sat at the table in sweatpants and a hoodie, hair tied back. She looked tired but steady. She slid the photo she'd sent me across the table. The ledger page. Brandon's initials at the top, handwritten amounts in neat columns. "I found it on his iPad," she said. "He forgot to log out of a shared folder. He was tracking payments. For what, I don't know." Grandpa nodded slowly, then opened one of the folders from his box. Inside were bank printouts, including the one I grabbed from room 1402. He lined them up next to Megan's page. It all connected. The recipient column used initials. Most entries were LD, same initials as the woman in the red dress. Dates and amounts matched the withdrawals in the hallway clip. Hush money. Brandon hadn't just cheated. He'd been paying someone regularly for months. Amounts matched dates on the ledger. And right next to them, in Grandpa's folder, were notes from Robert's company about bundled projects with Brandon's family business. Same dates again. Grandpa sat back. He was keeping somebody quiet, he said, probably about the affair. And he wanted the wedding locked in before Robert signed off on the investment deal. Megan didn't say anything. Her hands stayed flat on the table, knuckles pale. Dad showed up half an hour later. He looked 10 years older than he did last week. He hugged Megan, shook my hand, then sat down heavy in the chair across from us. "Your mother's not coming," he said finally. "She's staying at your aunt's for now." "Why?" Megan asked. "She says she needs space." "Truth is," Dad said, rubbing his temples, "I told her I'm moving out for a while. I need to clear my head, figure out what's left after all this." Nobody argued with him. Grandpa closed the folder and stacked the papers back in order. "I'll handle any calls from Robert or his people," he said. "They come sniffing around. They talk to me. Not you kids." Megan exhaled slowly, then pulled a notebook from her bag. She tore out a page and started writing. "What's that?" I asked. "A message to the guests," she said. "They deserve to hear something before the rumors get worse." She kept it short. "The wedding is off. Personal reasons. No further details. Thank you for your understanding. No blame, no drama. Just done." Grandpa read it, nodded, and set it aside to be sent out later. I leaned back in my chair. "You know I'm not your cleanup crew," I said to Megan. She looked up. "I mean it," I said. "I'll help when it matters. But I'm not the guy who fixes every fire the family starts." She nodded slowly. "I get it. I didn't know who else to call." "We're good," I said. "Not perfect, but good." Her shoulders relaxed a little. We packed the papers back into the box. Grandpa carried it to his study like it was just another day at work. Dad left to call the venue about canceling the rest of the weekend plans. Megan went out back to sit on the porch steps alone for a while. I stayed behind with Grandpa long enough to hear him on the phone, telling Robert's assistant that any deal involving Brandon was dead. His voice didn't shake once. That afternoon, I drove home and slept for 12 hours straight. A week later, my phone buzzed while I was setting up some old computers for a side IT gig I'd picked up. Brandon, we need to talk. I stared at the screen for maybe 3 seconds, then hit delete. Some things don't need answers. Instead, I started focusing on my own stuff again. Took the side jobs people offered, went for walks in the evenings, answered Dad's calls when he checked in from his new apartment, ignored Mom's texts for now. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after the wedding disaster, I ran into Layla at the hotel near downtown. She was coming out as I was heading in to fix the Wi-Fi for the front desk. "They wiped the cameras," she said casually, like we were picking up a conversation from yesterday. "Too many questions from people. Management didn't want trouble." I nodded. "Makes sense." She shifted her bag on her shoulder. "Policy's 14-day retention unless there's a subpoena or incident report, and management didn't want trouble." She shifted her bag. "There's still a copy somewhere, though. IT mirrors feeds off-site." She didn't say it like a warning, just a fact. We both understood. "Some files you keep, some you drop." She walked one way, I walked the other. And that was it. No perfect ending, no neat bow on top, just the truth out in the open, people dealing with the pieces however they could. But for the first time in a long time, none of it was on me.